let's get into it. Dive in head first with the game of the week, a playoff game, in essence, fighting for the NFC top spot. The Eagles go to Dallas to play the Cowboys. The Cowboys are tearing it up. They have the highest pass rate over expectation. Dak is playing better than any single quarterback in the league. I will argue head-to-head with anybody on that. He's absolutely shredding secondaries right now, putting on clinics left and right. Cowboys are 3.5-point home favorites. Vegas expects the Cowboys to win this game. The point total is the highest point total of the week, sitting at 52.5, 53 on some sports books. But Eagles, man, they just got killed by the 49ers in an embarrassing fashion at home, nonetheless. So morale is low for the Eagles. They're coming off a really tough loss, their second loss of the season. Jalen Hurts actually left the game briefly to get checked for a concussion. He came back in, so I expect him to be fine and ready for this game. Dallas coming off of a really fun win against the Seahawks. Seahawks actually did better than I expected, but nonetheless, Cowboys offense prevailed in a game that was really high scoring. As expected, that game was fun. Now, again, we mentioned this, and earlier we talked about it in our playoff discussion. This decides the top overall team in the NFC East. You know, barring an absolute burnout by one of these teams down the home stretch of the regular season. So, with this, the winner of this clinches a playoff spot at the top seed and potentially puts themselves in a position to hold on to the number one overall seed in the NFC, pending what the 49ers do rest of season. So much on the line. I'm so excited for this game. This is one I'm even looking forward to this more than I am Chiefs versus the Bills. Man, it's going to be a good one. Before I get into the numbers and the splits and all of that, Brendan, snap reaction. Let me know what you think and who you think is taking this one home.
Yeah, you just really can't argue a team is playing better right now than the Cowboys. And, I mean, passing, their offense is just looking beautiful. It's without Kellen Moore. It's not what we thought. It's not what I thought. But, I mean, they're just, like you said, Dak is shredding teams. And I think the Cowboys are going to score 30-plus points in this game. And the Eagles aren't going to be able to keep up with them. I think Dallas covers, is it 3.5?
3.5. 3. You got it at 3 on some books, but it jumped up to 3.5 a little bit too late for everybody to get on board.
Hey, it's in Jerry World. You know, Brendan Cooks is having a late career resurgence. Dak is getting the ball to him. CeeDee Lamb's unguardable. The running game's been a little bit better. Their defense is playing very well. I just don't think the Eagles are going to be able to come back for. Also, the schedule's just catching up to the Eagles right now. I mean, they have the hardest schedule, and it's really catching up to them, and they still have games to look forward to that they might not be completely focused on the current week. And I just don't think they're going to have it. Jalen Hurts is banged up in a lot of different ways. He's just taking a lot of hits. Like, if he were to go out, they got no shot.
And so, when this line came out, and when I was looking at, you know, what Vegas put out, the spreads and all of that, writing up the notes, I expected this line to be kind of juiced up in favor of the Cowboys just due to the way that the Eagles lost last week. But to my splendor, I found out that it was pretty fairly priced. You know, I expected Dallas by a field goal, you know, give or take. I actually expected this to be Dallas like 5.5 just after last week and what happened to the Eagles. But thankfully, they didn't do that. And I normally don't lead with my projections for the games, but I'm going to lead with it here because it came out with a resounding projection for this game. It had Dallas Cowboys scoring 30-plus, 32 to be specific, but it has them handily beating the Eagles.
I'm going to guess 9. Does it have 9?
10.
Oh, dang.
10. And now I don't necessarily buy into that fully.
I kind of do.
And I will say my projections, over half of them align with Vegas. They do. So, but some of them have large discrepancies, and some teams always skew the data, specifically the Colts. The model has a Colts problem. So just everybody, if you watch, you know that the model has a Colts problem. But nonetheless, it has the Cowboys absolutely routing the Eagles, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by that at all. I actually am on the Cowboys this week to win outright, and I think even they cover, especially at home. And I think that's what's baked into the projection is it does account for momentum and home field advantage, and that's just really what it's getting right now. Is Dallas Cowboys. There's no team that has more momentum than the Dallas Cowboys, and there's no better team that's playing at home better than the Dallas Cowboys right now. I mean, they are beating teams by an average of 20 plus points at home. That's insane. So
is it 17 games straight at home they've won?
It's something like that. I don't know the home road split, but playing at home makes a huge difference for the Dallas Cowboys, and I think we've seen that this year in the way that they've beaten teams. If you look at some of the numbers, it's going to be a fun offensive game, and you can see why it's totaled so high. Offensive EPA per play, Dallas is 4th in the league, Philly 5th in the league. Now, the Eagles have kind of come to a screeching halt as of late on the offensive side of the ball. If you look at like total yards per game, they've dropped all the way down to 8th, where they were previously a top 5 team. But nonetheless, they're still top 10 in most of the offensive metrics that you look at. Except they really have kind of come to a stalemate when running the football. At the beginning of the year, we saw them running with extreme efficiency behind the legs of DeAndre Swift, but that's not been the case at all, actually. Right now, they're 21st in the league in yards per carry. Not good efficiency from the Eagles team, who expects to run the ball again behind their stout offensive line. Now, the Cowboys don't really run the ball at all. That's what's funny. They have one of the lowest rushing rate in the league. In fact, they actually lead the NFL in passing rate over expectation. So for those of you who don't know that play, it's accounted in for a play rate where you pass the ball in neutral situations. So, but the real discrepancy that we see is in the defense. Dallas Cowboys are 3rd in the league in offensive EPA per play allowed. The Eagles have dropped all the way to 28th in the league. They are letting teams thrash them on the defensive side of the ball, which is unusual for the Eagles. At least the Eagles that we've known the past couple of years, they've always been known for a good defense. They certainly have the roster, but something's going on. They're not able to stop teams. So I think the Cowboys can do it. If we look at it too, the public certainly thinks so. 84% of the bets are on the Cowboys. 96% of the money is on the Cowboys. I'm not worried about that number. I'm not worried about it at all. Do you think, does your mind change about anything, or do you still lean heavy on the Cowboys?
The Eagles can't stop the pass. Dallas passes at an absurd rate, like you were saying, and they're really efficient with it. Also, I'll put this kind of into perspective. Like last year, the Eagles went on the attack early and got up really big on teams. And we're getting to the point now where, in this game specifically, the Eagles, instead of being real aggressive and going for it, they're more on defense mode because they have that number 1 seed. They have to defend what's theirs. Dallas on the other end is well, we don't have anything to lose, so let's go. Let's freaking attack them. And I mean, Dak over 400 yards, what do you have to say to that? I mean, they can't stop the pass.
They can't.
I agree with Scarlett on the 10.
I'm glad you agree with Scarlett, because Scarlett's been good to us lately, man. She's been good to us. Okay, so unanimous decision here on the pod by Cowboys and Scarlett. The Eagles are really going to have to come out and play lights out to stymie this Dallas Cowboys team. So this should be a fun one. I expect nothing less out of a NFC East matchup to this degree.